First, I'll start with saying I started playing hockey when I was 5, and I'm 67 now, so I'm going to need my glasses. Thank you, Renee. Thank you to the board. This is quite an honor to be here today and to be part of an outstanding induction class. I'd like to wish congratulations to my fellow honorees. When I talked with Rennie, he said we talk about your whole body of work in hockey. So I thought I would talk a little bit about my journey and some of the key people that I've worked with over the years. I grew up in Levack, Ontario. It's a small mining town 30 miles northwest of Sudbury, and it's a mining town. I mean, International Nickel Company owned all the houses, and they rented them to the workers. And my dad worked in the mine for 38 or 39 years. And but we did have a hockey rink and a curling rink. It was mentioned earlier that all the Canadian small towns had hockey rinks and curling rinks. Population when I played was around 3,000 people. So I played all of my minor hockey in Levack. My dad was very involved. He coached when I was a peewee for a couple of years, and then he went into management when we were bantams and such like that. So I played all of my minor hockey up through midget, and was never drafted by a major junior club. So I wasn't sure if my hockey career was ending at that point, but they started a junior B league in the Sudbury area, and there was a team in Levack in my hometown. We were the Levack Miners. And so I played for the Levack Miners in Junior B, and I was going to grade 13. At that point, I was looking at possibly going to one of the Canadian universities. And I was having a good year in the Junior B. I was leading the league in scoring. And in February, one of our coaches came in. I think it was Bob Parker, coach. He said, "There's a coach from Clarkson. Who's out in the lobby would like to talk to you." So excuse me, I made my way out and met Jerry York. And Jerry says, "Here's a dime. I'd like you to call your mom and dad. I'd like to come over to your house and talk to you about going to Clarkson." So Jerry comes over to the house. I actually rode back to the house with him, and he had a pop-up video that showed the school, all the campus. You got a chance to see the hockey rink. Had pictures of the locker room. Everything was in order. The socks were all hung. It just looked absolutely beautiful. And he was talking to me about coming to Clarkson. He said, "If you commit, you'll have a 4-year commitment from us. You can come down, play hockey, and go to school." And then he talked to my father and said, "What do you think, Mr. Taylor?" And my dad said, "I'd like my son to get an education." So that was the first big break of my career. And I went down to Clarkson and staying in a dorm that they affectionately called the Pit. And my roommate was Brian Shields, was a goaltender from Toronto. And it was such a close-knit group. Jerry York was my head coach, and my assistant coach was Bill O'Flaherty, and he's here tonight, and I thank him for coming down. My first year with Clarkson, we ended up missing the playoffs. It's the first time in 25 or 26 years that a Clarkson team had missed the playoffs. So we vowed to, be better going forward. In my senior year, we finished first in the ECAC, and Jerry York was awarded the Coach of the Year. And I don't know if anybody knows Jerry York's history, but he retired last year, coached 50 years at Division I hockey. From Clarkson, he went to Bowling Green and then on to Boston College. He's the all-time winningest coach in Division I. He won 5 national championships. And I had the good fortune of being part of his first recruiting class. So after my sophomore year, I had been drafted by the LA Kings in the 15th round, 210th selection. That was 1975. An interesting story about that is nobody called me from the Kings. So my sister Linda worked at the credit union in Levac, and the next day one of her co-workers got the Toronto Star and was going through the NHL draft. Says, Linda, where does your brother go to school? And she said, he goes to Clarkson College. She said, he was drafted by the LA Kings yesterday. So I got a call from my sister. That's how I found out I was drafted by the LA Kings. When I was in Clarkson, I actually worked underground in the mine for 3 summers. And after I graduated, 1977, I ended up signing with the Kings, and I was fortunate enough to play with the Kings for 17 years. My first year with the Kings at training camp, I wasn't mentioned anywhere on their roster, but I managed to hang around through training camp, had a good training camp, and I was playing on the 4th line. Ron Stewart was our coach. We would get 1 shift a period. At the 10-minute mark, we would get a shift. But I was playing in the NHL. And then we had a couple of injuries. I moved up to play with Peter Stemkowski as a center for a few games. And then we went out on the road for a long trip in January. The circus would come to the Forum in Los Angeles, so we'd have to go out on the road for 8 or 10 game road trip, and that usually made or break our season. And we were a few games into that trip, and the coach, Ron Stewart, moved me up to play in a line with Marcel Dion. And that was the second big break in my career. That game, Marcel had a couple of goals, and I played on his right wing for the better part of 9 years. And just an absolutely terrific player, one of the greatest I've ever seen. And he could do just about everything. So as I mentioned, I managed to stay with the Kings for 17 years. I was named the captain. Highlight for me in my playing career was the opportunity to play for the Stanley Cup. We had a great series with Toronto, Western Conference Finals. We won Game 7 in Toronto and went into the Montreal Forum, and Craig was talking about the history at the Montreal Forum. And to see they had the Stanley Cup at center ice, they had all the banners, and we were warming up, and Barry Melrose was my coach. It was a special moment for me to be able to play in that Stanley Cup final. And we didn't win the series, but it was a heck of a series. We won Game 1. We lost Games 2, 3, and 4, all in overtime. It was really tight. Montreal goalie was Patrick Waugh. Our goalie was Kelly Rudy, who was absolutely outstanding, but Patrick seemed to make one more save for Montreal. So after my playing career, I got involved with management with the Kings, and in 1997, I was named the general manager. One of our big signings, actually, one of my very first signings was to hire Bill O'Flaherty, who was my assistant coach at Clarkson. Billy, to me, is the most passionate and knowledgeable hockey person I know. We hired him as director of player personnel with the Kings. And one of my favorite stories about Billy is I often tell people the 4 best years of my life were the years that I spent at Clarkson. And when you're at Clarkson, I mean, it's a small school, you have so many friends, it's a great group, but the whole community is involved. And I remember going over to Craig's grandparents and having dinner and then putting the little plaque on the chair after I left. And Craig, I don't know why you were wearing number 24, but that's what I had retired at Clarkson. But yeah, it's a small world, the hockey world, and it's been very good to me. I worked with Doug Armstrong. When I was let go from the Kings in 2007, I went to work for Doug Armstrong in Dallas for 3 years, And I'm going to be going into my 14th year with Doug with the St. Louis Blues. And we had the opportunity to win that Stanley Cup in 2019, and it was a tremendous honor. So much fun. I was on the ice in Boston. I actually traveled with the team the whole series, whole Bruins series. We won Game 7 in Boston and kind of avenged a little bit the famous Bobby Orr goal when he scored on St. Louis to win the series for the Bruins back in 69, maybe 68 or 69. So I always thought, to be inducted into the New York State Hall of Fame is special for me. The time that I spent at Clarkson was very special for me, having the opportunity to play for Jerry York and to play for Bill O'Flaherty. And there were so many people and friends that I have. My good friends, Barb and John Regal, are here tonight. They're from the Albany area. I thank them for coming to the dinner. Clarkson's men's hockey coach, Casey Jones, is here. And for the lady hockey players, I should also mention Clarkson's women have won 3 national championships, and we're very proud of that group. So to close, I'd like to thank everybody involved in my induction. Congratulations to all the inductees. John Tonelli, I had an opportunity to play with him in LA. He falls under the class, a lot easier to play with him than against him. And, just a great person. So thank you very much, Renee and your group. Thank you.